So, mixed reactions to the president's announcement last night. DA leader John Steenhuisen saying the country dropped the ball on its response to the pandemic, adding that 24-hour vaccination programs are what are needed to save lives.
We failed spectacularly on the one thing that was always going to be the game changer in this, and that's getting as many jabs and arms as possible. It may not protect against the milder symptoms of the new Delta variant, but it will certainly stop people from dying and stop from filling up our hospital spaces. So instead, we have to resort to efforts that make government look like it's doing something when, in fact, it's dropped the ball spectacularly. Just today, we only vaccinated just over 2,000 citizens across the country. Now, the president likes to talk big numbers, but what he doesn't do is tell us how we're going to get to those big numbers. He's talking 300,000 vaccinations a day. When you're doing just 2,000 in a day, it's not good enough, which is why we suggested to the president, and the suggestion we've put on the table is that Treasury finds the money to be able to pay the overtime to the medical personnel. We should be vaccinating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at big numbers, because that is the only thing that's going to change the game. If we don't do that, I can tell you we're going to be sitting in a month or two's time with a fourth wave, with another variant, and with South Africans being left vulnerable because their governments dropped the ball on the one thing that's going to make the big difference to keep people safe, to protect lives and livelihoods, and to get us out of this Groundhog Day of never-ending lockdowns. And I really believe that 15 months into this pandemic, the jobs that are lost now and the lives that are lost now in this third wave can firmly be placed at the door of President Ramaphosa and his administration, because he's failed to get the hospital capacity up and running, and the Charlotte Macleay debacle is a very good example of that.
More reaction for you. The EFF wants nothing to do with Ramaphosa's plan to limit people's movements. This is after the party held a march to SAPRA's offices on Friday, demanding the approval for the use of the Sputnik 5 and Sinovac vaccines by the end of this week.
Why should we sit back and allow SAPRA to continue to sit aloofly and work only with Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson when we have other vaccines in the world that can help us? So it is clear that it's not about saving lives, but about transactions. The president of this country, Cyril Ramaphosa, and Aspen, along with the SAPRA, are one thing. They are engaged in transactions, and they're using the pandemic to line up their pockets. So we can't sit back. We are going to defy, and this must be made clear. The world, South Africa and the world must know that we're not going to be killed. We're not going to be finished at our knees. We're going to stand up like we did on Friday when we marched to SAPRA. We're going to continue and intensify our struggle. We're going to make sure that we get the people of South Africa vaccinated. And if it means we must die trying to do that, we're willing to do that. It's not the first time the EFF stands up against a barrage of media, a barrage of useless people who take a position against the livelihood in the interest of capital.
More reaction to the president's address for you now. The ACDP's leader, Kenneth, Meshoe, welcoming the new measures, but the party raised concerns that level 4 will lead to people losing their jobs.
We understand the seriousness of this variant that we are facing as a nation, but the response to that, we found it a bit harsh because the balancing act, we understand, was very, very difficult. It is unfortunate that churches will not be allowed to pray. You know, the issue of praying for trouble when it hits the nation, it's very, very important. And that, unfortunately, is now off the cards because there's never been any scientific proof that infections, most of infections come from the churches. There's never been such. So we thought, and I think, that the churches are a very important and essential part in fighting any kind of challenge, including diseases and also viruses that are attacking the country. But having said that, we are at least relieved that businesses will be allowed to operate normally, even though the liquor industry and the restaurants industry are going to be affected badly. Now, we know that there are many people who are employed in those sectors. And the fact that many of them are going to lose their jobs is a concern to us. Many of them are going to lose their assets. They will be failing to meet their financial obligations when it comes to their loans and to the cars they bought and their houses and so on.